In the 1980s, Ally Sheedy became a mirror reflecting lost souls. The eccentric Allison in the Breakfast Club, a symbol of kids who always felt out of place within every mold, never knowing who they needed to become in order to be accepted. Audiences loved her for her honesty, for the feeling that she was living out the emotions they had hidden their entire lives. But no one expected this. The woman who once captivated Hollywood would one day disappear from the spotlight, fall into addiction, and nearly lose herself after years of painful struggle. Even more surprising is where she stands today. In a quiet lecture hall in New York, Ally Sheedy is no longer in front of a camera. She stands in front of a blackboard. What truly happened to her? How did someone who staggered out of rehab with a damaged reputation and a career that seemed all but over become a figure with the power to shape the next generation of actors? It is a deeply emotional journey waiting to be discovered. Alexandra Elizabeth Sheedy was born on June 13, 1962, in New York City, the eldest of 3 children. Her father, John J. Sheedy Jr., was an advertising executive, while her mother, Charlotte, worked as a literary agent. With such direct ties to the worlds of literature and media, it was hardly surprising that at the age of 12, while still attending Bank Street School, Sheedy wrote a children's novel titled She Was Nice to Mice, 1975, which tells the story of an imagined encounter between Queen Elizabeth I and a curious mouse named Esther Esther. Published by McGraw-Hill, the book quickly became a bestseller, turning Sheedy, still a schoolgirl, into a name recognized within the publishing industry. From an early age, Sheedy showed the instincts of a performer. Between the ages of 6 and 14, she studied dance with the American Ballet and spent many summers on Fire Island staging performances with friends on lawns and porches. Notably, Ally did more than simply perform. She often cast the roles herself, wrote the dialogue, and decided which scenes were good enough for the neighboring audience to watch. At an age when many children were still shy about standing in front of a crowd, she was already comfortable controlling a small stage of her own. Sheedy's adolescence revolved around dance, until she became aware of the strict dieting and body pressure demanded by a dancer's life. Confronted with the trade-off between her passion and her own body, Sheedy chose to change direction from the dance stage to acting, a decision that seemed small at the time, but ultimately opened the door to her entire future career. The turning point came when Ally Sheedy decided to leave ballet behind and focus entirely on acting. There was no story here of being discovered by chance. Sheedy submitted her own applications, went to auditions on her own, and carved out her own path into the entertainment industry. In the late 1970s, she began appearing in television commercials and small supporting roles on popular TV series such as Hill Street Blues and Saint Elsewhere. These were not breakout parts, but they were enough to make Hollywood take notice of a face with an unusual presence. Not loud, not embellished, but layered. The kind of actress who makes you look twice to understand what she is thinking. Sheedy's first real leap came with Bad Boys, 1983, in which she starred opposite Sean Penn. She later recalled that simply standing off camera and watching Penn inhabit his role was a mind-blowing experience, like an acting class where no one teaches, but survival demands transformation. The film's dark world of violence, prisons, and out-of-control youth became, almost unintentionally, a mirror of Sheedy's own range, a gentle face capable of existing within a brutal environment, without being swallowed by it. But the biggest breakthrough arrived almost immediately after. War Games, 1983. The film's themes of nuclear war, technology, and artificial intelligence not only made it a commercial success, but also positioned Sheedy as the face of an American youth generation on the brink of the computer age. She did not scream for attention. Instead, her sincerity, slightly awkward yet intelligent, created a connection that Hollywood could never manufacture with special effects. This is also something many overlook about this period. From the very beginning, Sheedy was working alongside people who would later become Hollywood mainstays: Sean Penn, Matthew Broderick, and a host of directors and screenwriters from the golden generation of the 1980s. She did not take detours or test herself in shallow projects. Sheedy entered the game at its very center. By this point, Ally Sheedy was no longer the child who wrote children's stories. She had stepped into Hollywood on her own terms, without scandal, without riding anyone's coattails, but through a steady stream of roles, each with its own color, and most importantly, no two roles alike. What came next would transform Sheedy from a promising actress into the symbol of an entire decade, but with it came a price no one could have imagined, and that was when The Breakfast Club arrived. If the early years were merely a foundation, the 1980s were the moment Ally Sheedy exploded as a cultural phenomenon. She did not arrive with a 22-inch waist or a blinding Hollywood smile. She entered the audience's hearts through characters everyone had once recognized in themselves: confused, out of place, hesitant to speak, yet impossible to ignore. The Breakfast Club, 1985, was the moment that defined her entire career. As Allison Reynolds, the eccentric girl dressed in black, quiet, but carrying an entire world in her eyes, Sheedy turned the character into a global symbol for kids who did not fit the standard script of life. Not Hollywood pretty, not socially fluent, not knowing how to blend in. What few people realize is that Sheedy helped shape the character's look herself, working closely with costume designer Marilyn Vance. That heavy black and gray outfit was not just clothing, it functioned as psychological armor, something Allison used to defend herself against the world. Without Sheedy, Allison might have remained a quirky supporting role. With her, Allison became a declaration for those who belonged nowhere. That same year, Sheedy left another mark with St. Elmo's Fire, 1985. Playing Leslie Hunter, a young woman newly out of college but unsure where she belonged, Sheedy once again touched the instability felt by a generation standing at the edge of adulthood. The film, co-starring Demi Moore, Rob Lowe, and Emilio Estevez, was not only a box office success, but also cemented Sheedy's place within the so-called Brat Pack, the group of young actors who dominated popular culture at the time. Rather than stopping at two high-profile roles, Ally Sheedy continued to expand her range through bold choices and a refusal to repeat herself. In Short Circuit, 1986, she became the human companion to a self-aware robot, a role that seemed light on the surface but revealed Sheedy's ability to blend emotional fragility with a distinct, playful charm. In Made to Order, 1987, she transformed into a spoiled socialite suddenly thrown into the life of a maid, a mirror flip reflecting the social value reversals of the Reagan era. By Heart of Dixie, 1989, Sheedy stepped fully outside her comfort zone, entering the world of the Southern Civil Rights Movement and engaging with thorny social issues that many actresses of her generation avoided altogether. Critics have often described the films Sheedy appeared in as cultural snapshots of different moments in American life: The Breakfast Club, adolescent loneliness, St. Elmo's Fire, post-college uncertainty, Short Circuit, the rise of the technology age, Heart of Dixie. The clash of social ideologies. And here lies the crucial distinction. Sheedy never represented Hollywood's ideal of beauty. She was not a sex symbol, not a box office goddess, and certainly not a face studios wanted to mold into a standardized product. Hollywood pressured Sheedy to lose weight, learn how to apply makeup, dress more provocatively, and even suggested she wear padded bras to fit mainstream tastes. Some casting directors refused to meet her simply because she was deemed not attractive enough. But Sheedy did not give in. Instead of chasing the standard, she chose to stand outside it. She did not sell beauty, she sold emotion. Not perfection, but insecurity. That fragile feeling everyone has known, yet few dare to bring onto the screen. In a Hollywood that favored only glamour, Sheedy became the face of out-of-step souls. And it was precisely that non-conformity that allowed an entire generation to realize that at last they had someone who was like them, someone who offered comfort rather than judgment. But the bright lights of the 1980s reflected only Ally Sheedy's career path. They brought no illumination to her real life. Hollywood labeled them the Brat Pack, a name that sounded playful but carried a deep sense of condescension, as if the group were nothing more than lucky kids who rose to fame because of timing rather than talent. For Ally Sheedy, that label was not a compliment, it was a shackle. The media used it to box in an entire generation of young actors, while the industry quietly spread the belief that these faces had risen too fast to deserve the positions they occupied. The consequences came swiftly and brutally. Directors who once welcomed her began to hesitate. Casting calls grew fewer, skepticism more pronounced. People who had once viewed Ally as a peer now saw her as the symbol of a mocked trend. Worse still, the Brat Pack label forced the group itself, people who had once considered one another friends, to avoid being seen together. No one wanted their career to sink under a term they had never chosen. Many friendships fractured as a result, and Ally watched it all unfold like a wound no one tried to stop from bleeding. And Ally was not the only one to pay the price for a name they never asked for. Judd Nelson, once considered the rebellious soul of the Breakfast Club, was suddenly categorized as difficult to work with, simply because the press assumed the Brat Pack were party-loving kids rather than serious actors. After one role, he vanished from major projects, not because his talent declined, but because Hollywood no longer wanted to bet on a name stamped washed up before he was even old enough to be. Rob Lowe took a different blow. The 1988 sex tape scandal not only sent his career into turmoil, but was also seized upon by the media as proof that the Brat Pack truly were troubled kids. The entire group was swept into the same prejudice, regardless of who was actually at fault. Lowe needed nearly a decade to rebuild his image, a privilege compared to what many others never recovered. Emilio Estevez, once regarded as the group's unofficial leader, became trapped in the image of a teen idol to the point that directors dismissed him as unsuitable for mature roles. Every serious project he pursued was scrutinized with a single question. Is this another Brat Pack thing? And that question alone was enough to slam shut doors that had only just begun to open. All of them, each in a different way, came to understand a harsh truth that Ally Sheedy encountered first. In Hollywood, sometimes you don't fail because you lack talent. You fail because others have already decided who you are. Alongside the turbulence in her career, her personal life also became a tangled, difficult problem, often spiraling into cycles she couldn't escape. In the late 1980s, while her fame still echoed, Ally became involved in a toxic relationship with a man heavily addicted to drugs. In an effort to survive the chaos of that life, Sheedy began taking sleeping pills, at first simply to rest, then gradually slipping into addiction without realizing it. Later, she admitted that getting clean not only freed her from the pills, but also helped her leave the man who had drawn her into that downward spiral. This was not a sudden conclusion, but the result of a long, unseen descent. addiction to sleeping pills brought depression, anxiety, and a profound sense of losing control. Night after night, Sheedy confronted the thought that she was not beautiful enough, not talented enough, and did not belong in the world she inhabited. The cruelty of body shaming, ageism, and the pressure to become the version Hollywood demanded left Ally no longer recognizing herself. Eventually, everything collapsed. In 1989, Sheedy entered rehab to reclaim what remained of her life. After that, Ally disappeared. She left Hollywood and returned to New York, away from the spotlight, away from cold judgments, away from demands, to become someone other than herself. That period resembled a darker version of the Breakfast Club. If in the film she was confined to detention, then in real life she was locked inside an invisible cage, bound by restraints no outsider could see. But the darkness in Ally's private life did not come only from Hollywood. It also entered her life in the form of men who appeared at the wrong time. After the toxic relationship that led her into sleeping pill addiction, Sheedy tried to reclaim peace through a marriage that seemed stable on the surface. In 1992, she married David Lansbury, a stage actor and the nephew of legendary Angela Lansbury. 2 years later, their son Beckett was born, and Ally believed she had finally escaped a life that constantly made her feel like she was never enough. But a family is not a miracle. It is merely a mirror that reflects what you most want to avoid seeing. While Ally was still struggling with unresolved psychological wounds, the pressures of being a mother, a wife, and an actress who never quite fit the mold pulled her down even further. She tried to hold everything together, but marriage could not patch the holes within her that she herself had not yet dared to face. In the end, after 24 years together, they divorced in 2008. What remained was not simply a breakup, but a profound lesson. Beckett, the child Ally once feared she was not good enough to raise, grew up and transitioned. She did not hide it or deny it. Instead, she became one of the strongest LGBTQ+ advocates among artists once associated with the Brat Pack. Looking back, Sheedy once said that Hollywood made her confused about who she was, but marriage forced her to confront it directly. And it was only when everything fell apart that she realized some roles are meant to be performed, but some wounds must be lived with for a lifetime. Before becoming the calm-eyed woman standing at the front of a classroom, Ally Sheedy loved the way someone loves before learning how to protect herself. In the 1980s, she dated Richie Sambora, the charismatic guitarist of Bon Jovi, a man who embodied both the allure and the chaos of the rock world. To the public, it was a beautiful romance between two rising young stars. But for Ally Sheedy, it marked the beginning of a fracture she would only have the courage to name years later. Sheedy later admitted that her time with Sambora coincided with the period when she began abusing sleeping pills, not for pleasure, but to quiet the thoughts that were exhausting her. Sambora was not the direct cause, but that relationship was like a spark thrown into a fuel tank that was already leaking inside Ally Sheedy. Feelings of unworthiness, of not being beautiful enough, not being Hollywood correct enough, and a constant fear of being left behind. When the relationship ended, what remained was not sweet memories, but a habit of numbing the soul, the beginning of her descent into addiction. That relationship was not the only mark that lingered over Sheedy's life. Years later, she formed a close professional connection with James Franco while collaborating on The Long Shrift, 2014. At the time, Sheedy described Franco as wonderful and generous. Yet just a few years later, amid the Me Too and Time's Up reckoning, Sheedy unexpectedly posted tweets alluding to Franco, then deleted them almost immediately. There were no explicit accusations, no explanations, only a silence so heavy it forced Hollywood to ask what it was she was trying to recall. Ally Sheedy's relationships did not collapse through public scandals or loud confrontations. They were more like doors closing just as she believed she had finally found a place to belong, only to realize suddenly that it was never meant for her. And with each door she walked away from, Ally Sheedy carried a lesson that fame had never taught her. Love can be a miracle, but it can also be a blade that leaves wounds with no easy healing. After a period of absence, Ally Sheedy chose to return, but not by taking the shortest path back to the spotlight. Instead, she chose the hardest one, confronting herself through demanding, abrasive roles. High Art, 1998, became a comeback no one saw coming. In the film, Sheedy played a depressed, addicted photographer living on the margins of society, a character that closely mirrored Ally herself after years of battling sleeping pills and psychological turmoil. The performance did more than shock critics. It earned her the Independent Spirit Award for Best Female Lead, confirming that Sheedy's return was not about being remembered, but about being understood. From that point on, Sheedy veered away from mainstream expectations. She appeared in a series of late 1990s independent films such as Sugartown, The Autumn Heart, and I'll Take You There. No longer a box office star, Sheedy became a name respected within the indie film world. An actress unafraid of difficult roles, unwilling to avoid characters defined by fractures and flaws. Alongside cinema, Sheedy also entered the world of language and the stage. Her poetry collection, Yesterday I Saw the Sun, 1991, reads like an open diary of love, loss, and the search for a way out of emotional fog. On off-Broadway stages and in local theaters, she continued refining her craft in ways Hollywood had never allowed. Smaller, quieter, but sharper. Then television opened an unexpected new chapter. After guest appearances on Oz, CSI, and The Dead Zone, Sheedy stunned audiences by transforming into Mr. Yang on Psych, 2009-2013, a brilliant, eccentric serial killer with a twisted psyche, so far removed from the gentle, lost girl of The Breakfast Club that few could believe they were the same actress. The role stood as a declaration. Ally Sheedy would never be boxed in. In talk show appearances, Sheedy has said that choosing roles was never a strategy for her, but a matter of alignment. Only characters with real wounds, stories that touch the very struggles she was facing in her own life, could earn her yes. And it is precisely because of that seemingly simple principle that each time Ally Sheedy appears, audiences do not see an actress trying to prove something. They see a human being learning how to keep living. Crossing into her 50s, Ally Sheedy encountered a strange moment. Fame was no longer a destination, yet she had not found a new point of departure. Her son had grown up, Hollywood was changing too quickly, and Ally faced a question she had avoided for years. Where did she still belong? The answer came from an unexpected place, a classroom. At first, Sheedy was invited to LaGuardia High School, the arts school that had trained many future talents, simply to support students. But one trial teaching session became a turning point. She proposed a new course herself, acting on film, a class focused on performing for the close-up camera, something Hollywood had never taught her when she was young. Over the next 6 years, though not officially on staff, Sheedy worked tirelessly on lesson plans, observed students, and gradually realized she was relearning her own craft, this time from the position of a mentor. City College of New York recognized what Hollywood had overlooked, an artist who deeply understood the cost of starting too young. They invited her to offer a similar course at the college level. Sheedy wrote her syllabus by hand and set her own grading criteria. Full attendance, prepared scenes, support for scene partners, and seriousness toward the process. She had little interest in fleeting moments of brilliance. What she wanted students to learn was how to endure in the profession, something she herself had never been taught. As an adjunct professor, Sheedy prefers students to call her by her first name. Yet whenever someone begins with the familiar question, "Professor, I've watched all the films you were in," she still smiles, sometimes a little awkwardly, because they are speaking about an Ally Sheedy from the past, while the person standing before them is the ally of the present, a composed professor, a proud mother, and an artist no longer trapped by old definitions. Interestingly, Hollywood reappeared just as Sheedy stopped looking for it. The series' single drunk female cast her as Carol, a mother whose daughter is recovering from addiction. It was not merely a role, but an almost fated coincidence. Ally herself entered rehab in 1989 after a toxic relationship and sleeping pill dependency. She understood the exhaustion, the inner conflict, and the shame Carol carried. Sheedy has said that the most meaningful roles always arrive when she is mature enough to understand them, and Carol stands as the clearest proof. Some students Google her name before class, stunned by a filmography that stretches across an entire era. The Breakfast Club, St. Elmo's Fire, War Games, and they can't help but feel intrigued by this extraordinary professor. After many years of contribution, Ally Sheedy's legacy does not lie in the number of roles she played or in box office figures. It lies in the fact that she appeared at a moment when Hollywood did not know where to find a face willing to be honest about its own insecurity. In a decade filled with teased hair, leather jackets, and perfect smiles, Sheedy stood as proof of the opposite, that one could still become an icon without fitting any prescribed standard. The Breakfast Club did more than turn Allison Reynolds into a classic character. It turned Sheedy into a language for young people who did not belong to the majority. Ever since, whenever Hollywood creates a story about lonely youth, critics continue to cite Sheedy as an unavoidable reference point, a benchmark for being so real that audiences see themselves in it. Yet Sheedy's greatest influence does not come from her performances, but from the way she stepped away from the spotlight. In a world where many actors collapse once attention fades, Sheedy chose a different path, turning the experience of breakdown into teaching. At City College of New York, students do not find a faded star. They find someone who has fallen, stood back up, and understands that acting is not a contest for headlines, but a struggle to preserve clarity, self-respect, and the ability to understand other human beings. The very fact that Sheedy became an educator sets a rare precedent, a mainstream Hollywood actress moving into education not because the roles ran out, but because she finally found where she truly belonged. She proved that not everyone who succeeds must remain at center stage. Sometimes real value lies in teaching others how to stand when the lights go out. Ally Sheedy's influence has also seeped into popular culture in a slow but steady way. Younger generations of actors, from Kristen Stewart to Saoirse Ronan, have cited Sheedy as one of the first figures who made them believe that vulnerability, eccentricity, and silence can also be forms of strength. Hollywood once tried to force Sheedy to change her appearance, but millions of viewers found themselves in the way she refused to transform to please anyone else. And if there is one contribution that stands above all, it is this: Sheedy turned fragility into a way of storytelling. She was not a star who made audiences dream. She was the one who reminded them that sometimes cracks are where the light gets in. Not loud, not dominant on the charts, but Ally Sheedy leaves behind something many more successful figures never achieve: the right to be honest with oneself, with one's craft, and with those who once believed they were never good enough to exist fully in this world. In her early 60s, Ally Sheedy is no longer the girl hiding behind a black coat in the Breakfast Club. Yet she remains a living testament to those who once lost their way and found themselves again. Her life now unfolds in New York, where she lives calmly and without display, making no effort to keep pace with the entertainment world she once dominated. She continues teaching at City College of New York, where her acting on film class has become a gathering place for students who want to understand acting not through technique, but through lived experience. Many students admit they Google their professor before class, stunned to discover that the person standing before them is part of 1980s pop culture history. For Ally, the fascination lies not in being recognized, but in the chance to pass on lessons she herself was never taught. How to preserve one's identity in an industry that constantly seeks to define you on its own terms. She still appears in public, but on her own terms. In 2024, Sheedy attended the premiere of the documentary Brats at the Tribeca Festival. A revisiting of a past that once left her bruised, now approached not with anger or shame, but with the composure of someone who understands she has survived it. In early 2025, she was spotted on the streets of New York hailing a taxi like any other resident, an oddly simple image when one recalls a star once pursued by all of Hollywood. Alongside teaching, Sheedy continues to act selectively. Her role as Carol in Single Drunk Female stands as the clearest example. A mother with unhealed wounds, both strong and weary. Not a character meant to showcase technique, but one meant for viewers to recognize themselves within. Sheedy no longer seeks roles that make her famous. She chooses those that help her understand herself more deeply. At this stage of life, Ally Sheedy does not speak of a comeback. She doesn't need to. She returned long ago, not on the red carpet, but in real life. A mother content with her grown son, a patient professor, an artist no longer trying to prove anything, a human being who has turned her falls into steps. If the 1980s made Ally Sheedy a symbol of the lost, then the present has made her a symbol of something more important, the peace that comes after finding one's way home. Some artists enter Hollywood to become stars. Ally Sheedy did not. She entered it as a doorway, searching for answers to the sense of alienation she had carried since adolescence. And the irony is this: the very place that turned her into an icon nearly destroyed her. Through rigid beauty standards, reductive labels, and the scrutinizing gaze that makes people forget who they are. But Ally Sheedy did something not everyone has the courage to do. She stepped out of the story others wrote for her, and rewrote herself. From an actress boxed in as the eccentric girl, she became a respected indie artist. From someone shattered by sleeping pill addiction, she became a teacher guiding a new generation to act with self-respect. From a cultural memory of the 1980s, she became proof that peace does not come from being seen by the whole world. It comes from finally seeing yourself. And perhaps that is Ally Sheedy's greatest legacy. She gave those who once believed they did not belong a foothold to believe that no one is born to fit everywhere, but everyone has a place where they belong. Because perhaps, for Ally Sheedy, the spotlight was never salvation. It was only a mirror, allowing a human being to learn how to stand in the darkness without disappearing. Are you living the life you want, or the life others expect you to become? Is there something within you that the outside world has forced you to hide? If Ally Sheedy's story touched something in your thoughts, leave a comment, an emoji, or even just a single line saying that you saw yourself somewhere along this journey. And if you want to continue exploring the lives of people who once shone brightly and then faded beyond the lights, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Every click not only helps us keep telling these stories, it also allows shadows, once thought forgotten, to be seen again.